Be the right club. Be the right club today. Yes!
Again, has to be careful of the speed.
What a comeback season for Hal Sutton.
Come right back toward the hole. Come on in. That's the second eagle he's made it for this week.
17 years later, Hal Sutton is the Players' Champion.
He's got it going right at the flagstick. It'll be up. It is.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Be the Right Club Today podcast. Hal, how we doing?
I'm good, Chase. Ready to do this again.
All right. This one's an exciting one for me because growing up, the Ryder Cup was always one of my favorite events to watch, and I'm excited to ask you a bunch of questions about your experience with the Ryder Cup, but kind of get an inside look, get a behind the scenes look that just watching it home on TV, we never really got to see. So when the Ryder Cup comes up, what's your first thought?
Pressure.
Yeah.
First thing that I think about is, playing for your country, playing for your PGA professional that taught you as a kid. Ed Peck taught me a lot as a kid when I was growing up. He was a PGA professional, and every time I went to the Ryder Cup, I thought, I'm playing for Ed.
Okay, so thinking about this, as a young kid growing up at home watching you, I would have never thought about that. I would always thought, oh, it's us against Europe. From a playing perspective, why did that come to mind?
Well, just because the PGA of America, it's their event.
It's their Super Bowl, basically, right?
It's their Super Bowl. It's their, they make more money off of the Ryder Cup than they do anything else. Probably everything else combined.
Okay.
And, so that money flows through in various ways to PGA professionals. It gives them more opportunity, basically.
Okay.
It doesn't flow through to them. But anyway, every time I went and played, that's what was on my mind. I don't know if other players thought about that, but I sure did.
That's cool. So you played in four Ryder Cups. First one was in '85
right.
in the UK, right?
Trevino was a captain. That
Awesome.
was pretty fun.
Okay, so talk a little bit about him as a captain, and then what you remember from some of those matches and some of those.
Well, '85, we flew on the Concorde over there. That was pretty cool.
Okay.
They chartered the Concorde, and we all flew as a team, and the dignitaries of the PGA, and we arrived. It was at the Belfry, and what a lot of people don't really know is there's a lot of parties involved. Black tie affair, entertainment, European team versus the American team in terms of get-togethers.
Okay.
And so those are always fun. There's some bantering back and forth between each team, but in a happy way.
Sure.
Trevino was funny as he could be as a captain. He was loosey goosey. And I think I mentioned this to you before. I was paired with Stadler in the first one, and he and I had never played together before, and that was a little bit of a challenge. Most of the time when you go to the Ryder Cup, you play with people that you played with before.
Okay.
You know something about their game. Just not for any reason, but we had not been paired together for 3 years on the tour. And so that was a little different when we played together the first time. But anyway, a lot of funny things.
So in '85, what was the we touched on this a little bit in episode 1, but was the Ryder Cup the same as it is now? I mean, was it starting to get to that point, or where were we with the competition between us and Europe?
It was, 83. It was close, and Lanny hit the shot in on 83 that they won on the 18th hole at PGA in Palm Beach there. So that was really a close match. Went down to the wire, and then when we went over there, they had a lot of heavy expectations, and they ended up beating us, you know, and it was the crowd was a little bit tougher. That's the first time I'd ever seen it. I'd just seen it, on TV like you had.
Right.
And, it was a lot of pressure involved. I remember that.
So you played 3 matches with Craig, I believe.
I think that's right.
And then the singles match. Do you remember anything? First tee, first match. Do you remember?
Well, the only thing I really remember was we were way down. Stadler and I, we were playing Ballesteros and Panero, and we were 3 down going into number 9. I hit a really close iron shot. I was teeing off on the even holes, and we were foursomes, and Craig was teeing off on the odd holes. And Craig had hit it down the middle on number 9, and I hit I don't remember what club, but pretty close. We made birdie and won the hole. And it was a pretty good walk to the 10th tee. And all the way over there, Craig is telling me, lay up. It's a par 4 that we could hit it across the water to the green, and or you could lay it up. And he said, lay up. I said, I'm not laying up. I'm hitting it against Ballesteros, and he's not laying up. There's no way. We just won our first hole. No way. I'm telling you, lay up. And he and I got into a little bit of an argument all the way over there.
Okay.
It wasn't a heated argument,
Sure.
but he was trying to convince me to lay up. And I said, I'm not laying up. And, I shaved the paint off the pin as it went by, right at it, and Ballesteros hit it in the water. And this is a great thing. Craig probably get mad at me for telling this story, but anyway, long story short, he had an attitude of protection, and I had an attitude of go get it. And you can see in the way we played the next few holes that was both of our attitudes.
Yeah.
So Craig drove it on number 11. We won 2 holes in a row. We were 1 down. He drove it on number 11 way right, and they hit it down. I don't remember where they hit it, but they hit it on the green next, and then I hit it about 5 or 6 feet out of the rough. And they made a real long putt, and Craig missed a real short putt for birdie. So they've got back to 2 up, and we go to the next hole, which is a long par 3, and I hit it in there about 8 or 9 feet, and Craig and they hit it on the green, but made about a 50-footer, and Craig missed that one. And then he promptly snap-hooked it out of bounds on the next hole.
Right.
And it was just, you could just sense, and this happens to a lot of great players, they begin to protect in the Ryder Cup.
Yeah.
And Craig was in that mode of, let's not make mistakes, which causes you to make mistakes.
Sure, and you can see it in alternate shot. A lot of times you get in the fairway, get on the green, you just kind of keep putting a little bit of pressure on them. But if you're playing against a team that's playing really well, that protection mode's not going to work.
No, it's not. And as players have gotten better, in the old days, in foursomes, protection worked. But now you got to go make some birdies.
Yeah.
And
everyone's too good.
Everyone's too good now.
So talk a little bit about, you had never played with Craig before. Talk about that kind of mindset, and we're going to get into this here in a little bit, but one, pairing players together that are friends or have played a lot of golf together. 2, different styles of play. Do you think Hal Sutton's better off playing with somebody like you that's very straight, very accurate, kind of like a Zach Johnson today, or thinking of other players, or is it better to pair a Hal Sutton with a Dustin Johnson that's a completely different style of game and is gonna take on golf courses a little differently? What's your take on that?
Well, I think we're better off playing with similar kinds of game.
Similar distance off the tee,
similar distance off the tee, similar hit iron, similar distance. In the old days, people paired based on the kind of ball you played.
Okay.
But that's kind of gone by the wayside because there's so many different flavors of golf balls now. So, I think the most success, certainly when I had the most success, was when people that played similar to me. And, in 99, I was paired with Jeff Maggart and Justin Leonard. And, we were all similar distance. But
paired with Scott Verplank in 02, and you guys won that match.
Exactly. So, I mean, Larry Mize in '87, he and I were paired together, and we were similar kind of players.
Okay. And I would agree with that. I mean, I would say it would be hard for even like a Dustin Johnson and Jordan Spieth to play together, just because, even though Jordan's such a good wedge player, alternate shot format, one's hitting it 350, one's hitting it, 290, 280. I mean, that's a completely different style of game. Talk about, so 87 back on our soil. Nicholas the caddy. Talk a little bit about some of the thoughts and some of the stories. You got a couple of interesting ones from '87.
Well, first of all, I stayed with Jack and Barbara at their house. They had a house on the 17th hole at Muirfield. And of course, that was really a dream come true for me. I was, a young player on the tour, and my second Ryder Cup, and getting to stay with my idol, and every morning we're having breakfast in there. Barbara was fixing breakfast for us, and we're talking about the day going forward, and I got a lot of inside information from Jack in terms of how he thought and how he played golf his whole life, and it was a good week. We thought we had the advantage because the greens were rolling 13 or 14. We thought if they were really, really fast, it would be USA advantage. And we ended up getting beat that week too. And it was a good week for me. I played really, really well. Larry Mize and I teamed up, and we played Ballesteros and Olazabal, and it was the first time they'd ever gotten beat. And it was I told Larry when we started, I said, man, I'm going right at the flag. The first two holes, I hit it less than 2 feet on both holes. And we birdied 3, parred 4, birdied 5. I'm 4 under after the first 5 holes, and I'm 1 up. And so we get around to 16, and we're 1 up, and I hit it about 6 feet right behind the hole. And Larry missed the green to the left. Ballesteros missed it to the left. And Olazabal missed it right. And he was first to play, and he chipped it all the way across the green into the rough on the other side. And so Larry chipped next, and he hit it about 8 feet by the hole. And Ballesteros was next, and he chili dipped. Never see him do that.
Out of the bunker, too.
No, it wasn't out of the bunker.
Oh, he wasn't in the bunker?
He was in the rough.
Okay.
And he didn't really, he just rough was high, and he just didn't hit it hard enough, and it didn't get on the green.
Just rare for somebody.
Yeah, it was rare for Ballesteros to do something like that. Right. And I'll never forget, Larry and I were standing side by side, and Larry said, man, I can't believe he just did that. I said, he's going to hold the next one. Don't worry about it. We're going to have to make this to win. And he gets up over it, and he's doing it with his right hand. He would feel the shot with his right hand like he always did. And sure enough, he knocked it right in the hole for a 3. And, of course, Larry was going over to putt his. I said, don't worry about it. I got it. And I knocked the putt in the hole for a 2. We were 2 up going into 17, and we tied on 17, being 2-1.
2-1. How cool. Was that, would you say it was probably one of the best Ryder Cup matches you ever played?
That's the one I remember the most because, Seve and Olazabal hard to beat. This, I mean this in the most complimentary way. The Spanish go down with a ship. They are the toughest to beat. Yeah. And I think if you're a listener out there and you've watched the matches, you know that to be true. They're just very difficult to beat.
You see it with Rahm too. You can tell Rahm's just a fighter.
Look at Sergio.
Yeah, Sergio's
the same way, and Jimenez, tough. They're all just tough to beat.
So at this point, you're the team lost in '85 and '87. Is there a sense amongst the players like you guys have not really have a problem on your hands, or did you guys? What was that like?
It was written, you know.
Did you guys talk about any of that stuff, or was it more so this was just an exhibition event and they happened to beat you?
I think I don't remember having conversations with other guys about it. I think. But it's in your heart of hearts, you think about it. Yeah. And why didn't we win? We're the better, we thought we were the better team.
On paper, rankings, PGA Tour numbers, all that stuff.
And, I was long removed. I didn't make another team until '99 from '87, and I wondered if I'd ever make another team.
Right.
And there was a lot of losses during that stretch.
Yeah. So beginning of the year, every year that a Ryder Cup is coming up, or even the year before, was that always one of your top goals?
Oh yeah.
Always to make the Ryder Cup
Always
team?
wanted to make the Ryder Cup team, even though you felt more pressure there than anywhere else.
Sure. What were the differences between Trevino and Nicklaus from a caddy perspective, or caddy from a captain perspective?
Well, two completely different personalities. Trevino's happy-go-lucky, always cracking a joke, and Nicklaus was a lot more serious. And and plus, I had a lot more interaction with Nicklaus because of staying with him.
Mm-hmm.
So I personally had a better week at 87 because I was staying with him.
Right.
But Trevino was funny. He was really funny. One of the things that he made a lot of statements that were on the edge, let's say, and other people got credit because they didn't want to give him credit for it because it would have hurt his reputation,
right.
basically. He fired off some things that probably he wishes in retrospect he hadn't have said.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So let's go into the 99. Obviously some cool stuff that happened. But one of the things we were talking about before this was kind of the lead up to 99. There was some contentious debates and some stuff going on. Some behind the scenes, some was out in public about whether players should get paid or kind of what all, all that stuff that was going on. So talk a little bit about the lead up.
Yeah, there was a lot going on then, and a lot of the younger players on the tour, were reaching the point that they felt like they ought to get paid to play, and there were several meetings about it, and a couple that, there were some words from different players in the meeting, about their beliefs, and, all of us older guys were fine playing for just the prestige of
Sure.
playing, and some of the younger guys felt like the PGA was making a lot of money off of it and needed to spread the money around. And, there was even a couple of guys that said, without us, you don't make this. And, our world was changing at that time.
Right.
It's not just golf. The youth of America was changing at that time. And you could see it within the golf circles at the same time.
Where'd you stand on that?
I was fine not getting paid.
Yeah.
I was making enough money outside of that. I didn't feel like I had to make that too.
Yeah, for a player to make the Ryder Cup team, they had a pretty good year, pretty good run of a couple of years. And
yeah, most of the time they had clauses in their other contracts. If they made the Ryder Cup team, they got bonuses for that too. I didn't play golf. Maybe this is what's wrong. I didn't play golf because of money. I played golf because I loved golf. And then the more I played golf for money, the worse I got, really. The more I started thinking about, well, this will cost me this, or I should make this off of this.
The more it became a job?
The more it became a job and the less fun I had doing it.
Sure.
But when I played golf just for fun and I didn't think about money at all, I've always believed money is a byproduct of excellence. My dad used to tell me, Hal, if you do anything good, I don't care if it's even digging a ditch, they will seek you out and find you. And I always lived by that principle. And
we talk about it a lot here. Why'd we all, play the game at an early age? We wanted to compete. And so the Ryder Cup's right up that alley. Like, let's go compete and see what we got.
It is, it's at the highest scale because everybody in the world knows whether you won or lost. Right. At lower local level, everybody doesn't know that.
No. So talk a little bit about the 99. Obviously, you guys got off to a rough start. You're down 10-6. Do you remember anything kind of from those team matches? Anything that kind of stands out?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of things that stand out. We at the beginning of the week they said they wanted to pair Jeff Maggard and I together, and I really liked that pairing because Jeff and I played a whole lot alike, and I felt like we would be able to club off of each other really well. And both of us drove it pretty straight. And, you know, we were tee to green. That's what our games were. If we made some putts, we were going to be effective. And so Jeff and I had some early success. And I never will forget it. Crenshaw had kind of said before the week, he said, I'm going to play y'all until Saturday afternoon. And if things go well, I want to give you all Saturday afternoon off. And because he wanted to try to keep from playing everybody all 5 matches if he could. And I'll never forget this. He came in after, I think we had beat Colin and Paul Laurie in the morning. It took us to the 18th hole. And every match that I had played had gone either 17 or 18. And so I was tired already. But he walked in and he said, hey, guys, he said, y'all got to play. Y'all been playing well. I really need y'all to play. And Jeff said, I can't play. I'm tired. If you want me to be effective tomorrow, I need a break. And he looked over at me and he said, how about you, Hal? I said, man, I'm ready. Let's roll. And he said, who you want to play with? And I said, I want to play with Payne. He said, well, Payne's playing terrible out there. I said, yeah, but he bleeds red, white, and blue. And I said, he's out there playing foursomes. I said, this afternoon it's going to be best ball. He's got to go in there and hit that ball out of trouble, not me. And I said, I guarantee he'll figure out a way. And he kind of looked down for a second, and he said, you may be right, but I got a hunch. He said, Justin has never won a point. And he said, you're playing really good. And he said, you could help Justin get a point. And he said, we got to give Justin some confidence. And so we went out and played, and Justin was not playing very well at all. And we were one down going into 15, and I had made a bogey already, and Justin had about a 5-footer for a par to tie. And I said, Justin, you make this putt, I'll take it from here, I promise. And he hit a putt that went all the way around the hole and fell in. And then I hung it on the lip for a 1 on 16 to go to even. And we went to 18 and just halved. And I felt like that was, I'd played all 4 matches, and trust me, I was give completely out.
Sure. So that obviously set the scene for the big putt and the big match for Justin that next night or next day. Talk a little bit about the night. So you're down 10-6. Mm-hmm. And what was your record so far? I mean, you'd won.
I had won 1. I'd won 2, lost 1.
2-1-1
and tied 1.
Okay, so of the 4, you would amassed 2.5 of those points.
Yeah. So that evening, it's traditional on Saturday night for everybody to sit around and tell each other what the week had meant to them, and it's not about it. It's about relationships. It's about camaraderie. It's about those sort of things. Right. And we went around the room that night, and it was, you could just sense that everybody was down because of the predicament that we were in with all of the, pre-tournament favorite talk that was going on. And,
yeah, there were some big words. I think it was Jeff Maggart said something about they couldn't be your caddies or it was something along. It was a pretty aggressive stance. There was some. You guys were heavily favorited. Let's just say that.
I'm sure glad I didn't say that because I didn't really feel that way either. I had seen all these guys play for a long time. I knew that they were plenty capable.
Right.
But anyway, long story short, back to the evening that night, everybody went around the room, and it was determined words of wisdom from everybody, and determined words of we can do this. Yeah. And it was calm too, which was, there was nothing heated. It was just we can still do this. And the way the pairings went out, when we got the pairings, we knew that we had a chance because, Ben basically front-loaded everything with all of the guys that were playing the best on our team. And, we knew if we could get it squared away in the first 6 matches, then hopefully something good could happen at the end.
Fourth quarter, anything can happen, right?
Fourth quarter, anything can happen.
And that's exactly what happened, too.
That's exactly what happened. You know, on Sunday morning, he led off with Tom, and I was second off, Tom Lehman. And Tom had played really well that week and you know, was just what a fighter Tom is. And Tom and I were two of the oldest guys on the team as well. And I'll never forget, he and I were both in the getting worked over by the chiropractors and everybody. And Crenshaw walks in, and we were both talking about how bad we were hurting, you know. And we played 72 holes basically in 48 hours under the kind of stress of a Ryder Cup. Right. So we were both hollering uncle. And but, you know, we were both determined. And Ben turned around and walked out, and both Tom and I said, you know, whatever we got to do to get this done, we got to get it done. And, you know, it was fun because Tom made a couple of long putts in front of me, and I'm standing out in the fairway watching him make these putts, you know. And if you remember, like on 13, he makes a bomb on 13, and he runs around the green, you know, as he makes his putt. It was pretty fun, exciting. And, you know, to my match, I'm playing Darren Clark, and, you know, we teed off on one, and both of us hit it down the middle, and Darren didn't hit it as far as I hit it, and he hit first, and it was almost a shank. It was way right. And the pin was back right, and there's a big tree on the right-hand side. And I'm thinking, man, I've lost the first hole in every match. This is my time to win the hole finally. And I hit it about 15 or 20 feet left of the hole, perfect, right in the middle of the green.
Safe, yep.
And he hits this flop shot over this tree from about 35 yards and holes it. And I missed the putt, and I'm walking off the green, and Bruce Litsky's standing right there. Bless his heart, he's not with us anymore, and what a great fellow Bruce Litsky was. But anyway, long story short, Bruce looked at me, and he said, I can't believe that just happened. And I said, well, it's all right. I said, I lost the first hole, all 5 matches. I'll get it back. And I birdied the next 4 to go 3 up.
Man.
So, you know, we get to number 9, and I had it in there pretty close for eagle. And I'm above the hole, and Darren was below the hole for birdie. And I missed the putt for eagle, and it goes by about, 2 feet, not much. And he holes about a 4-footer for birdie, and he walks over to the back of the green, just stands there, and I got the 2-footer straight up the hill. And I was putting really, really good. And he made me putt it. He didn't give it to me. And it's a long walk to the 10th hole, and he gets about halfway up the hill, and he turns around and looks at me, and he said, I really wanted to give you that putt, but I'm so far down I couldn't give you that putt. And I said, don't worry about it, Darren. I said, I wouldn't give it to you either in the same circumstances.
Oh, that's funny. What a funny comment. So how loud was it that day? Was it?
It was electrifying. That's probably the most electrifying time I've ever been on a golf course and been part of it. It was really strong.
Where were you at when Justin made the putt on?
I was on the back of the green.
Were you back there?
Yeah. All of us were on the back of the green. Some of us, I think everybody lost sight with, I think there were too many of the people that thought, that's it, we've won. And, a bunch of them ran out there, and they, in retrospect, that shouldn't have happened. But the day was so heated in terms of all the things that were going on and how far we were down and the comeback.
Sure.
It was pretty.
Well, and then leading up to it, again, some of the contentious debates and discussions you guys had regarding to get paid or not get paid. I mean, how was that evening?
After the tournament?
Yeah.
It was a great evening. We were all sitting around, celebrating the victory.
Yeah.
And, that was the last night I ever spent with Payne Stewart, was that night. And he and I it seemed like it was 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning where we were just sitting around talking about the future Ryder Cups, and it was pretty, I think it was a foregone conclusion he would have been the next Ryder Cup captain. Yeah. Maybe if not, he would have been after Curtis. Yeah. Curtis was the next one. So probably Payne would have been after Curtis. But anyway.
So 01, obviously 9/11. 01 gets delayed. moves it to 2002. That was in, where was that at?
Belfry.
The back of the Belfry.
Back at the Belfry. Yeah.
What do you remember from 02?
Well, I wasn't playing very well, because I'd made the team because of my play prior to 2001, and then they delayed it for a year, and I was still on the team, so I'll never forget this. We were headed over there, and I know what it's like to, I've watched the captains, and so I pulled Curtis off to the side, and I said, "Look, Curtis, I want you to know I'm not playing my best, and I want you to know I'm a big boy, and I want the American team to win. And if that means I need to be on the bench or I need to be out there pulling for other players, then that's what I need to be. I'll be the team player that I need to be. If I'm out there, I'll give it everything I got. But if I'm not out there, I'm still going to give it everything I got." Right. And so I only played 2 matches. I think Curtis took that to heart and played with Scott Verplank, and we won our match. And then I got beat in the singles. Langer beat me, I think, in the singles. And he was playing a lot better than I was, so that was pretty much a foregone conclusion. But anyway.
And then you got, was that Ryder Cup very close?
Honestly, I don't remember, but it was, we got beat. Yeah. I don't remember by how much.
Did you ever see any other players do what you did with Curtis? Like come up to him and say, "Look, I'm not playing my best." Like talk about that a little bit, because obviously you want to play, but
yeah, I don't know what other players did. Yeah. I grew up playing team sports, and I know what it means to win in team sports. Golf is an individual sport, but we do play team-wise. It's a bunch of individual efforts that add up to a team score. And, I wanted to be on a winning team. I didn't necessarily need the accolades of doing it myself.
Right.
Some people need the accolades of doing it themselves.
Sure.
And
golf is kind of that way, so it kind of trains us for that, trains our mind for that.
It does, and that's why, around here we advocate, people playing other sports
Absolutely.
when they're early on in their life, so they get the whole flavor of competition.
Don't specialize too early. There's
Right.
a lot of benefits to that. So your overall record in the Ryder Cup, 7-5-4. What I found interesting is you're 5-1-1 in foursomes. So an alternate shot, you were 5-1-1. Talk a little bit about why do you think that was? Historically, Americans have kind of dominated alternate shot, but, which surprises me a little bit too.
Well, I don't have an exact answer for that. I think, I've always hit it relatively straight, and always was a pretty good iron player, and made a lot of short putts my whole life. I didn't really miss a lot of short putts. So, those are kind of the things that lead to a good partner in that format.
Yeah, you didn't get too nervy.
Yeah.
So,
and I didn't take a lot of risks that would cost us anything.
Yeah. So would you say, were you more nervous at the PGA beating Jack, or were you more nervous in Ryder Cup?
It always seemed like I was more nervous on the first tee at a Ryder Cup.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that, to be honest with you.
You've talked about this a lot, but how do you handle those situations for the listener at home?
I always had a little trick that seemed to help me. To me, the world feels really big then. That's a world stage. It's a world event with people from around the world, and both from a player perspective and from a spectator perspective. And so the way I dealt with pressure is I tried to reduce the size of my world. So I would look down at something, even a blade of grass, something really small, and just keep looking at it until my world kind of just did this. And if you look up, if you look at the crowd, if you look at the flags that are flying, the world just seems so big and so monumentous. It's like
overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. And so I would try to reduce the size of my world so I could handle the pressure.
What greatest match ever played? That was the Seve Olazabal match. You and and Larry.
Yeah, I mean, most exciting because there was so many birdies made.
Yeah.
You know, everybody was playing good. Larry was playing good. It's just I was making so many birdies, you know,
Right.
that that was a group that you would have wanted to watch as a spectator because there was lots of birdies being made.
Talk a little bit about Seve and any antics from him. You know, you always heard stories.
No, not really. Not that week, or not when I was playing him that day.
Yeah.
He was just being Seve. You know, he was. I mean, here's a shot that he hit that day on number 9. Neither one of them hit the green, and Seve hit it over the green in the gunch over the bunker, and the pin was on the the right hand side of the green on number 9. I mean, nobody else could have held this ball on the green. And Seve stopped it short of the hole like this that day.
About 2 inches short of the hole.
3 inches short of the hole. And, I mean, we're thinking he can't keep it out of the water. And
Just the greatness.
it's just, I mean, you just never knew what Seve was going to pull off.
So, talk a little bit about the differences in the captains. You know, we talked a little bit about Trevino, Nicklaus. You know, Crenshaw and Strain, Curtis couldn't be any further apart as far as personalities.
Yeah. How about those 4 captains I played for? Trevino, Nicklaus, Crenshaw, Curtis Strange. All great players.
Absolutely.
You know, incredible guys. You know, I'm just feel so privileged to have known them, much less played with them and played for them,
Sure.
you know. And, you know, I don't think we ever stopped as a player to really understand the magnitude of that. You
Right.
know, we were in the middle of everything, you know, and I'm 62 years old now, and I'm sitting here thinking about those. I mean, I'm texting back and forth with Curtis the other day, and he said, come on down here to Naples and play with us. He said, none of us can hit it over 240 yards, so you'll be okay. I mean, we've all aged,
Right.
and we appreciate, you know, Curtis was one of the biggest fighters I've ever seen in my life. I mean, you just did not want to get down to Curtis.
Right.
And, you know, everybody grows old, and you have a different appreciation for those players now.
Sure.
But they were all great captains. You know, they did their best. You know, one of the things that I think needs to be talked about is, you know, what can a captain do for a team?
Yeah.
And, you know, there's very little that a captain can do for a team, to be honest with you. I mean, we're an organizer. That's really all we are. You know, whatever they don't have, that's what we try to do and get. And, you know, if they don't bring a game with them to a world stage like that, they're not going to find it while they're there.
Yep.
I have never, I mean, I played on 4 teams, captained 1 team, have been around other teams. I have never seen a guy find it when he got there. I mean, the guys that played really well, they came in there playing well, and they brought it with them.
Would you say that's similar for majors too? I mean, do you think that's a similar? You could make a similar statement.
Yes, I think it's pretty tough on a big stage like that to find what you're looking for.
Yeah.
I think you pretty much are going there with it, and I think pretty much everybody that's ever won at a stage like that, they knew they had a chance before they got there.
They felt pretty good
They
about
felt
what they
pretty
were
good
doing.
about what they were doing. They weren't questioning what they were doing.
You know, so going back to the captain stuff, one of my next questions was, do captains matter? You know, and you kind of answered that a little bit. I mean, do you think, you know, a lot has been made recently about, you know, the practice rounds beforehand and who's playing with who, and, you know, the media here is trying to come up with a reason why Americans have struggled in the Ryder Cup and we've gotten beat, and we're trying to come up with all these reasons. What's your take?
Well, let's just put it as bluntly as I know how. When Nicklaus and Trevino and Raymond Floyd and all those guys were playing and dominating at the Ryder Cup level, the Europeans weren't nearly as good. Yeah. And they were playing against just the British players too.
Good point.
And, you know, as they turned it into a European event, and they got a lot better. And to be honest with you, they played in an environment where, you know, the weather was bad a lot. Golf courses weren't in great shape all the time. And we were playing the PGA Tour was doing their best to play in a dome environment. I mean, we didn't play in a dome environment, but golf courses were in perfect shape, and there was a lot of competition over here, a lot more money over here, and we were competing against each other, and over there they traveled with each other a lot more. So, there's just a lot of factors. I mean, I don't think anybody can put their finger on this and say, that's it.
Yep.
I don't think it's quite that obvious.
There's not a set blueprint to win a Ryder Cup for the United States outside of just good play. Go into the relationships between the European players, traveling together and the camaraderie that they have. I mean, even in 85, 87, did you feel that? Did you feel like they were closer as a team than necessarily you guys were?
That was something that I don't think we noticed that much, but it became more obvious.
Do you think it's more prevalent now, or because you almost get a sense that the U.S. players now, from I mentioned Spieth and DJ and Justin Thomas and all these guys, they're closer now than maybe you guys were when, in say 99 or 95 or whenever.
Well, we were all going different directions. Now, with net jets and everything else, they're all flying together, and there's a lot more opportunity to be around each other. They played a lot of junior golf against each other. So there was a bunch of guys coming out at the same time that had played golf for 10 or 15 years together before they ever got at the PGA Tour.
Yep.
And so they had a relationship before they were ever out there.
Yep.
And more so than we did.
Sure. And I think you would agree with this. It's a lot easier to go to battle, just like you mentioned with Craig. And, in 85, you hadn't played much with Craig. It's easier to go to battle with somebody that you've broken bread with and spent a lot of time in a car with, and just on a personal level.
Well, it's easier to say you're scared.
Yeah.
Or I got this, and argue with him.
Right.
I mean, you got to be. It's easier when you know somebody really well to tell your deepest concerns.
Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about the captains. The captains that you had in 85 and 87, 99, and 2002. Let's talk a little bit about your captaincy. So there's a couple of stories leading up to you being captain that I think is pretty interesting. You were captain in 08. When did the PGA first approach you?
04.
You were captain 04.
04.
Sorry, captain 04. So this was so you were the next captain after Strange. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So in 02, when you played in 02, did you have any idea that they might be contacting you?
No, I didn't have any idea. They actually, a lot of people don't know this, but they asked me. I was at Disney at Orlando when they asked me to do it, and I was overwhelmed, and I listened to them. All the officers of the PGA, they call you and they come in and they say, look, we thought about this. We'd really like to have you be the captain. And I never will forget, MG Orner was the president of the PGA. And I said, MG, I'm overwhelmed that you've asked me, but I can't give you an answer today. At the time, I was still planning on playing. And I don't remember, but I was 45 or something like that at the time, fully exempt all the way till I was 50 if I wanted to be. And, I really wanted to continue to play. And I'll never forget it. I called home and told my dad. My dad said, you need to turn it down. And that's not what I expected my dad to say. And I said, well, why do you say that? And he said, Hal, you can still play. And he said, that's a lot of time is required in doing that. And you're going to give up your own game if you do that. And, that probably set everything into a bad note with me, because now I feel like I'm going to, if I choose to do this, I'm going against what my dad thought I ought to do. And, my dad had been my teammate my whole life, basically, sure, in terms of advice and, things that I needed to do with my own game.
Right.
And I'll never forget, I told my dad, I said, Daddy, there's only been like 24 of these in the history of the Ryder Cup.
Such an honor.
How in the world can I say no to this? This is what I played golf for forever.
It's the pinnacle.
And so anyway, he just said, Hal, I'm just telling you from a career. He said, tell me what a captain gets out of this. you can't get anything out of it. If they win, the team won. If you lose, the captain did it. And it's been that way through the history of this whole thing, which is a fact.
Yeah, boy, was he right.
Was he right.
Especially today with social media and the critics and everything.
So, but I didn't listen to my dad. It took me 5 days to call him back and tell him, and I finally called him and I said, I'm going to do it. And,
didn't they comment that no one had taken
no
that
one
long?
had ever taken that long to do it. And it wasn't because I didn't want to do it. It was because I think if my dad had been encouraging, I'd have called him back the next day and said, yeah, I'll do this.
Well, for listeners at home, and this was something I didn't realize until we talked, I kind of termed it the captaincy tour. Like you've got to go on this long, drawn-out tour. It's almost like the Heisman Tour for a lot longer time, though. So there's a lot of stuff you have to do. You can't just continue your career and play. So to your dad's point, that was his concern, right?
Yeah, they teach you how to bridge from one subject to the next. They send you to a school so that someone teaches you how to bridge from one subject to the next, because there's a lot of controversial things that are asked
for interviews
and stuff, and they want you to be able to skirt things they don't want you to talk about and bridge that to another subject that you are happy to talk about. That's how particular this whole thing is. And you are schooled, you are groomed to do this. And, they don't want to be controversial in any sort of way. They want to make sure that, we ride the fence on everything. And, I'm not going to say I was a fence rider most of the time. I stood for things and I believed in it. And, automatically by doing that sort of thing, I'm already becoming somebody that I'm not.
Right.
And, but I tried to do it the way they wanted it done, And I got challenged right off the bat, 2 weeks before the Ryder Cup. I get this telephone call from Steve Lloyd telling me that Phil had signed a contract with Callaway for, I think it was $75 million, and he was going to switch clubs and ball 2 weeks beforehand. I really didn't get out there that much. And, here I am. I told Steve Lloyd, I said, well, Phil should have called me himself and told me this. He's actually playing, and he didn't want to hear what I had to say about it. Probably is why he didn't call me and tell me that. And he, like a lot of players, the things they don't want to deal with, that's what the managers get to deal with. And, I was a little upset because I'd given 2 years of my life to this, and let's think about the other 11 players too. And knowing the club company wants him to switch right before, so there's more buzz and there's a method to all the there was a lot
madness.
Of that week. There's so many things that didn't get in the newspaper purposely. We didn't let it get in the newspaper,
right.
But Phil was upset because I didn't go up there and tell him who he was going to play with. Well, I never did say this to him, but I really wanted to look up here. So what did you come up here with that you were certain with? That's what I really wanted to say.
Yeah.
You didn't come up here with a ball that you knew. You didn't come up here with a club that you knew. And yet you want me to come in here and tell you exactly who you're going to play with.
Right.
And, he told me on Wednesday, he said, I'm not even going to go out and play. I'm going over to the other golf course because I don't know how far this ball's going. Well, that didn't get in the media.
So from a captain's perspective, when you've had to sacrifice 2 years of your life for this, and then a day before the event's supposed to start, the number 2 player in the world is trying to figure out how far the ball's going.
Yeah,
I'm sure that didn't
that's a little worrisome.
I'm sure that didn't set real well with you. So we'll get a little deeper into some of the pairings decisions and stuff here in just a second. But talk a little bit more about what all did you have to do as a captain leading up to the event, and not so much 2 or 3 weeks, but a year or so in advance. Obviously, you went to school, but what else did that look like?
Well, you travel around for the PGA to all the major markets in the country, promote the year before promoting the Ryder Cup. Right here is a picture of me throwing out the first pitch, so to speak,
at the Dodger game. Hitting a ball.
We were in LA for the media day for the Ryder Cup, and Dodgers were playing, and they asked me to throw the first pitch out. And when I get there, they said, look, would you actually hit the baseball to the catcher? And I said, I've never hit a baseball before, but I did what they wanted to do. You know, it's just total. I mean, that's what you're there for, to do what they want you to do.
Right.
And so there's a lot of that. You know, you're running around. It's their biggest event. It's their moneymaker, and you know they do a lot of promoting.
Sure. And it's only gotten bigger too. You know, from Furyk a couple years ago or last year having to do. I mean, he probably has to do as much or more.
Yeah. Yeah, there's more to do when it's in the United States.
Okay.
But anyway, there's still a lot to do.
And where was yours at?
Oakland Hills.
Okay.
Detroit.
So talk about, you know, couple months before captain's picks. How many picks did you get? Was it 2 at the time? Two. Difficult. You know, I'd made the decision on who was going to be. We need to talk about that. Assistant captain. Yeah, so captains too. Yeah.
You know, I'm just a guy that believes in the history of the game, and so I'd always been close to Jackie Burke, and Jackie was 84 at the time, but still very astute and very up on the golf world.
Right.
So I called him and said I wanted him to be assistant captain with me, which was a little bit of a sacrifice on my part because he wasn't current with knowing a lot about the players.
Yeah.
Knew a lot about the game, but didn't know a lot about the players. And
a lot of those players had probably never even met Jackie.
They had never even met Jackie. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted Jackie to be there, was because I wanted them to get to know him. And anyway, long story short, and then the other assistant captain was Steve Jones, who had won the U.S. Open at Oakland Hills, but had had a multitude of injuries and had not played a lot. And I thought, you know, this would be a great tribute to Steve. Everybody loves Steve. Yeah. Steve's just a likable guy. And I said, this would be a great tribute to him, having won here. He's got knowledge of Oakland Hills as well. So, but neither one of them were actually current at the time, which put more pressure on me, basically. And
where like now, you know, was it Furyk that had Tiger as an assistant, or Stricker had Tiger as an assistant?
I think it was Stricker.
Yeah. So anyway, using some players that are still, you know, and Stricker's been an assistant captain too at times,
right.
and
they're using players that are current at the time.
Yeah.
And for a couple of different reasons, you know, they're friendly with all the players that are actually playing. Yeah. They know them all real well. They played with them. They know their game and everything else. So, I mean, you know, it's elevated. The Ryder Cup has just continued to elevate. And so are all the decisions that are made with it.
You know, again, tough question to ask you, but do you regret the captains you picked, the assistant captains you picked? Do you wish, I mean, is there a limit? Can you add another one?
Two was all we were allowed to have.
Okay.
You know, maybe I would have liked to have, probably would have liked to have. Steve was great. You know, Jackie, maybe if I hadn't have had him as an assistant captain, I would have had him just there in the team room with everybody, but not an assistant captain. Although Jackie had some incredible things to say.
As he always does.
Yeah, he does. I mean, this is a funny story. We were getting it handed to us, and on Saturday night, or on Friday night, I'll never forget it. I was out watching the last group finish, and we had walkie-talkies, and I just between Steve and Jackie and I, that's the only people that could hear what was on the walkie-talkie. And I said, look, I don't know what y'all think. I said, I've got to go to the media center, but I want y'all to tell me real quick who y'all want to set tomorrow, who you think we should set. I said, I'm going to set Tiger or Phil. I just don't know which one of them yet, because we got to send a message to the rest of the team. I said, we're not going to win it with either one of those guys. We're going to have to win it with the other 10 guys. And this is so classic Jackie. Jackie comes back on. He said, well, hell, Hal, set them both. He said, that takes some real courage to do that. He said, because we don't have a chance. He said, come on up here. He said, I got pen and paper in hand, and we'll go ahead and start working on the closing speech when you get here. This is an 84-year-old guy telling this, you know. So it was really, really funny. And so when I got there, you know, I obviously didn't set them both, and I set Phil. And honestly, Tiger had played better than Phil in the first 2 matches. And I guess I didn't have the courage that Jackie was talking about setting them both. But anyway, long story short, I said I had finished with the media center, and Jackie and Steve and I were in the locker room. And I said, so tell me exactly why you think it wouldn't have made any difference. I want to know what you think. And he reached down, there was a pen sitting on the table right here, and he reached down and picked up that pen, and he held that pen up, and he said, Hal, every American has got that pen leaning this way, and every European has got that pen leaning that way. He was talking about shaft lean. And he said, at Oakland Hills, you have to use the ground to maneuver the ball. And he said, every American is coming in there just like that, and they've not figured out yet to use the ground to maneuver the ball. And he said, the Europeans got it figured out. And I thought that was a real astute comment. You know, we're a product of our environment. And in America, it's all in the air. And in Europe, it's a lot on the ground. And Oakland Hills, you know, perfect example was the 9th hole. Pin goes to the back right, and every American's wanting to aim it right at the flag, and every European's aiming on the left and letting the lay of the land move it over to the hole. And, I mean, it's a hard shot to go right at the flag there. And I'm standing on the tee telling them not to go at the flag. Hit it over here. We still lost the 9th hole almost every time going through there. It's just hard to do something different for 1 week.
That you never, yeah.
That you don't do every week.
Yeah. That's why Augusta's hard. That's why British Open's hard.
And
just different.
I think these are points that really help you out there understand what's going on when you watch one of these events. Well, you're sitting there, well, why can't he figure that out? Well, because he's not doing it the other 51 weeks of the year or whatever.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of an analogy of football. You know, back in the, you know, a few years ago when you had some more spread option teams or triple option teams. Georgia Tech, I remember it was hard to play them that 1 week because you never saw it any other week. And so all these teams were like panicked. You know, when the Wildcat in the NFL was coming, it's kind of a similar analogy. So we touched on assistant captains. Talk about your captain's picks.
Stuart Sink and Jay Haas.
Okay.
Stuart Sink was leading in putting that year, and
yeah. So what goes in? I think this is a cool discussion. What goes into that? What goes in your mind? Like, what are you looking at?
Well, you're looking for things you don't have, for one thing.
Okay.
You know,
so you're looking to kind of round out the team as far as
you're trying to round out the team. And Stuart was putting fantastic at the time, and Jay just great ball striker. Probably never got the credit of being the ball striker that he was. And, you know, I paired Jay with Chris DeMarco, and they were really a good team together. Played similar game.
Yeah.
You know, there were so many things that happened that week, you're dealing with caddies, you're dealing with wives, there's so many different things that a captain has to deal with.
Sure.
Everybody's got feelings, and you know, you're the ultimate decision maker when it comes to that week, and
sure.
So everybody's complaints come to you.
Absolutely. How do you go about what? How much say did you have in setting up the golf course?
We talked about it. You know, I think I had influence, but I don't think there was nothing in specific that I knew I got done.
You didn't have a plan as far as how to set it up?
I didn't have a plan as how to set it up. Kerry Haig set it up. And, you know, we talked about the strengths and weaknesses, and he took all that into consideration and set it up from there.
Do you know, this you might not know, but, you know, do you think captains now have more? Do you think that there's this concerted effort, or do you still think PJ, Kerry's going to set it up however they want to?
I think everything has moved the direction of getting everybody involved.
Yeah.
There's more assistant captains. There's more captains' picks. There is more of everything.
Yeah.
So I would tend to believe that there is more consideration for what the captains and the assistant captains think about how a golf course ought to be set up.
Would you, if you could go back again, hindsight's always 20/20, would you have changed how the golf course was set up? Was there anything that, I mean, again,
I can't really remember, to be honest with you. It wasn't one of those things
like,
that
oh gosh,
it wasn't one of those things that I left thinking, man, if we'd have done this, it'd have been a different outcome.
So you touched on all the decisions you have to make from a caddy standpoint, from a player's wife standpoint. I'm going to ask you some questions about that here in a second. Talk about outfits. And, in '99, you guys had the famous shirt that had the picture frames all over it. What kind of decision-making goes into the outfits and all that stuff?
That's a great question. That's one thing that the captain has total control over. You pick out who you want to make the shirts. You pick out the manufacturers who makes the suits and all that sort of stuff. And Fairways and Greens made ours that time. And Hal Martin, he came up with the idea of using all of the colors of all of the militaries of the U.S. and coordinating all of that. And I thought that was really a good idea. Cool. It was the armed forces, it's people that fight for our freedom, basically, and I thought that's a great idea. And so that's what we did. And so it was everything we wore that week was a variation of that.
That's cool. That's cool. I've never heard that. All right, so leading up, week before, are you grinding on who's playing with who? Do you have an idea who's playing with who? We had talked about it, and we really didn't know. And when we got up there the night before we went out for the first time, I said, look, we don't, there's so many different golf balls now, and everybody plays different. We had a wide variety of people from Fred Funk all the way to Tiger in terms of distance. And so I said, we're not sure. And so everybody just gather up and play. This Oakland Hills, it's a major championship golf course. So y'all go out and practice like you're preparing for a major championship, and we'll watch and we'll see if we can come up with who we think the pairings ought to be. And so that's kind of how we went out the first couple of rounds. At what point, this was the famous Tiger-Phil pairing. When did you start thinking about putting them two together?
I had thought about it for months. And, the reasoning behind it for months, not while I got there, but, I kept thinking, if we could get them to leave the 2004 Ryder Cup friends, golf wins.
So before, you definitely wouldn't have classified them as friends.
Yeah. They were competitors.
Yeah.
And it's pretty obvious now at this particular point that, they're number one and number two in the world in prize money. They've made the most money. They were the two best players over the course of time.
Yep.
And
so this would be accurate in saying that they're closer now than they were in 04.
Way closer.
Yep.
Way closer. And funny, the first time they played for $10 million,
The match.
The match. I tweeted out there and said, I guess I was way ahead of my time. I got criticized for it. Now they're paying them $10 million to do it. And they're actually loving it.
Yeah, that's exactly
right.
But
maybe that they loved it because there was money involved.
So were you doing this you grew up kind of idolizing Jack and seeing how Jack and Arnold, in the beginning, their relationship was a little bit, not controversial, but a little bit not comfortable, and then it developed into what it ended with.
Well, there's always, you would say, the best two at anything, there's rivalry there.
Yeah.
But usually we hope that it's friendly, and at the end of the competition we can shake hands and say, great battle.
Yeah.
I had hoped, I thought, if we could see Tiger and Phil walking down the fairway, laughing and joking with each other and playing great golf together, wouldn't that be a great storyline? And wouldn't golf win over the next 10 years if that became the truth?
Sure.
And, I just wasn't sure if that's something I wanted to do, but it was in the back of my mind. I talked to Jackie about it and Steve about it. I'm probably a month out, and said, what do y'all think if we were to pair the two of them together? And Steve was kind of neutral on it, didn't have any thoughts, and Jackie was kind of adamant against it. He didn't like the idea of it, and I said, well, I don't have anything in my mind. I don't have any preconceived ideas about it. We'll just, all of us keep thinking about it.
Okay, so then couple of practice rounds. Had you talked to Tiger about it yet?
I talked to Tiger about it a little bit that week.
Okay.
And hadn't said anything to Phil about it. And Tiger was like, be happy to do that if you want to do that.
So how'd you approach Phil about it?
Phil was blindsided with it, to be honest with you. Phil had told me on Wednesday that he was not going to play a practice round.
Right.
And I said, really? He said, no, I don't know how far this ball's going, so I got to go over here and test it out. And I said, there's 35,000 people that came up here thinking they're going to get to see Phil Mickelson play golf today. He said, well, I've got to go figure out how far this ball is going to go. So that really aggravated me. I thought, would I ever have the nerve to tell another captain? We've gone over who the captains were.
Right.
Could I tell Trevino, Nicklaus,
right,
Crenshaw, or Strange that? And not that I'm one of them. I'm not trying to put myself in that category. I think you go up there realizing you're the player and someone else is calling the shots that week. Yeah. And I thought, Well,
and I think you bring up a good point, too, with the 35,000 fans that are wanting to watch.
I mean, that's a big deal. Yeah. That's a big deal. And all of a sudden, Phil doesn't walk over there with the American team to play golf. I mean, I think if you're just an innocent bystander on the side, you got to wonder if things are okay when that happens.
Right.
Is there some sort of dissension? Why isn't Phil playing?
Right.
And, that never really got out. So what I did.
And leading up to that, he, the day, the first practice round and what, he was kind of not coming after you, but wanting to know who he was going to play with, who we're going to play with, who we're going to play with.
Yeah, he'd been the whole time. So anyway, long story short, Phil's on this end and Tiger's over here. I walked by Tiger and I said, Tiger, if I decided to put you and Phil together, you still okay with that? Uh-huh. I said, give me 3 of your balls then. What for? I said, because I may need to get him to get ready to prepare to play with those. So he hands me 3 of his balls. I stick them in my pocket. And they all leave and go to play, and Phil's on the back of the range hitting balls on the range. There's still 1,000 people watching. And Phil hit balls, and I walked over to Phil, and Phil said, so, you still don't know who I'm going to play with? And I said, well, I've been thinking about it. I said, I went over and got the world rankings, and I said, it says right here, you're the 3rd best player in the world. I said, I can't fathom that you've been asking me all week long, who you going to play with? I said, you ought to be able to beat anybody over here on your own. I said, but I've been giving it some thought. I said, this is the best I got right here. You can go on and play with him. That's the best I can give you. He looked at that ball and said, Tiger. He said, you pairing me with Tiger this week? I said, that's the best I got, and you've been asking me for help all week, so here it is. Thank you very much. That's exactly what I want. I said, I'd be careful about that because I just gave you the world's biggest stage. And I said, we need you to play the best you can play.
Gives me chills.
And, I've not told that story out loud many times. I've told it in private gatherings, but I haven't told it out loud. And I'm not telling that to hurt anybody.
Sure.
I'm telling that because I took a lot of hate for that. And I've shouldered that my whole life. And to be honest with you, there was a bunch of people that should have shouldered some of the blame for that. And for that loss I'm talking about. And had that worked out right, had Phil played well, that could have been like a dream come true. Because they were first off, I wanted them to set the stage for the Americans. And it was just, it just wasn't right from the get-go that week.
Sure. Well, and again, you took a lot of heat, as you said, and I go back to what your dad said when he says how if they win, it's because of them, and if they lose, it's because of you.
Well, that cost me the rest of my career. I quit golf after that week. I mean, I left and never played again for the next 4 years. And, you know, I started building Boot Ranch, and I left the game entirely. And I was so disgruntled with the way everything went. And I had give up a lot of me to do that. And this is what I got. And, I mean, I wrote letters to all the players, you know, telling them, envision yourself being the leader of this team. And, you know, I took it to heart what I was trying to do.
Sure.
And, you know, it was tough with an ending like that.
Sure.
That may be the hardest thing I ever endured golf-wise.
Well, and again, especially when you didn't hit a shot. It had nothing to do with, you know, again, it wasn't your fault that Phil didn't play all that great, or, you know, you had mentioned a couple times Tiger played pretty well in the first 2 rounds, but it wasn't at top Tiger either. I mean, the team didn't play all that great.
Nobody, you know, really and truly, we didn't play that great. And you know, the caddies always give the captain a present, and I rode cutting horses, you know, and so they called ML Letty's and said, you know, what can we get Hal? And they got me a black hat. It was a real expensive hat. And they gave it to me right before we went out. And they said, we really want you to wear this out. I'm not going to not do that. Right. That's our American caddies, you know. I caught a lot of heat for wearing the black cowboy hat out. And I'm trying to do the right thing for our team,
sure,
you know. And these are things I've never talked about in front of everybody else.
Right.
I've shouldered this, wore it on my sleeve for a long time.
Right.
And I'm actually kind of glad to get some of this out a little bit.
Right. You know, looking back, you know, would you pair Tiger and Phil together again?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
Honestly, I mean,
circumstances would be different. You know, I'm sure we wouldn't be in the exact same circumstances. You know, and obviously, you know, if it were now, they're friends. You know, so
now the world really. And I remember back then, the world wanted to see it.
Yeah,
you know,
the world wanted to see it bad.
Yeah,
yeah.
We wanted as Americans, we wanted to see them dominate.
Yeah.
You know, there was the two best players that we had. I don't remember who was the number one player from Europe at the time. Was it maybe Sergio, or I don't remember who number 2 was.
I don't remember. I've forgotten about all of
it. You know, another tough question after you know, after you've shared so much. You know, if you could go back, would you captain again?
I don't think I would. I really don't think I would. I love the PGA of America. I do a lot of, you know, I'm thankful that I still do things for them, and I still take it to heart that every time we do something for the PGA of America, we're doing it for, you know, now there's 29,000, I think, PGA professionals out there. But, you know, that's just I don't think I would.
Too tough. Again, I never understood or realized how much time it required of you leading up to the event. You know, and I think it's just such, especially as the PGA America is trying to get captains that are, you know, they're pretty recently removed from the PGA Tour is how I would word it. And it really puts a commitment level in it.
Well, that's, you know, you mentioned Jim Furyk earlier. I've got a great deal of admiration for Jim because he still kept playing at a high level while being captain.
Yeah.
And you know, hard to do that.
Sure.
And meet all the needs that they have
with the Captain Tour and stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, if there's any blemish on Tiger's record, it would be his record in the Ryder Cup. Talk a little bit about that. What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, when you're number one, everybody's shooting at you. Yeah. And, you know, that's an individual effort there, or close to an individual effort to take a stab at the best player in the world. So everybody else gets ready to play you, and you, you're the one that everybody's shooting at.
Getting their best shot. Talk about playing with him, like as a partner.
Well, I don't know. I never played with him as a partner, but
what you saw.
What I saw, I think guys looked forward to playing with him because he was so dominant, and he knew he was going to do a lot of good things. So I think everybody felt like they had a better chance of winning by being his partner.
But don't you, just like you mentioned with Phil, now the world's watching. I feel like there is more pressure on a lot of these players being paired with.
Well, this is a great story. At Oakland Hills, I paired after the second day, the Saturday morning match. I paired Chris Riley and Tiger together, and they were winning. And Chris Riley on 13, he hits it at par 3, hits it in there like this, and the crowd is going nuts. And I think they're like 2 up at this point. And I walked out there, met them halfway, and I said, "Hey, Chris," I said, "I'm thinking about pairing you and Tiger again this afternoon. You okay with that?" And he said, "No, I'm not." He said, I don't want to do this again." I never dreamed I'd hear that either. So anyway, and Chris, that's no offense to you on that. I mean, it was great that you were honest with me, but, I took the exact opposite approach. Put me in the game, Coach. Put me in the game. And I guess others didn't have the same.
So regarding, man, that's such a big stage, and to feel the...
He felt the pressure so much that he didn't want to do it any longer.
It just goes to show how good Tiger's been for so long, handling what he's had to handle.
I mean, we talk about it. I have people talk to me about it all the time. I mean, for Tiger to stay at the level that he stayed at for this length of time, there's just nobody like him.
So when you're talking about Tiger's Ryder Cup record versus like a Jack Nicklaus Ryder Cup record, or some of the older guys, don't you? We touched on this a little bit, but don't you feel like they didn't face the bear that is the European team now? I mean, the level of golf on a world stage has gotten a ton better.
A lot better. I mean, the gap is not as wide, and if anything, there is no gap.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we can chalk that up to many things. Technology, worldly traveled.
Right.
The Europeans started coming over here playing, and because this is where the most money is played for,
right.
So they came here to play. So they weren't in awe of any American players. They've been
playing and beating
them
for a long time.
And so... they might have been in awe of Tiger, but they weren't in awe of anybody else.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time Americans were actually favored in a Ryder Cup. It's been quite a while. Man, good stuff. Thanks for bearing your soul a little bit on some of this stuff.
I think I'll close with this. I played British Opens, Masters, U.S. Opens, PGAs. There's nothing quite like the Ryder Cup. It's in a league by itself. Players look forward to it. Fans look forward to it. It's competition at the highest level. And the reason why y'all are watching this podcast is because y'all want to find out what inside information you can about competition at the highest level when it comes to golf. And it's what makes us, as a little boy or a little girl, dream about reaching a higher level, is competing and beating people. And nothing quite like the Ryder Cup.
Good stuff. Thanks again for tuning in. Check us out on our social media pages. Check us out at househuntgolf.com. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.
Be the right club today. Yes!